Is the current crisis in firearms industry and ammunition just a big bunch of hype, and are you going to keep blaming a particular president for it? Because, yeah, the president totally is the one who drove up the prices for gasoline and ammunition and weapons. It's not like the firearms industry and the fuel industry in the United States is responsible for pricing. So when Biden's evil reign ends, are they going to drop the price immediately to prove that it was caused by him, or are they going to leave it up because that's what they always do? Let's talk about firearms industry and the hype. Bulk ammunition as well as individual box ammunition price tags as of January 25th, 2022, and the difference between previous years. 22 long rifle, 8 cents a pop. It's up 50 cents. 50%. Excuse me. So yeah, it went from 5 cents to 8 cents. That's the worst one. 9mm, it went up 24%. It's 30 cents a pop. That's a big jump, by the way, from 8 cents to 30 cents there. 22 Magnum, about the same cost. 7.62, the AK-47 cartridge. It's half as expensive as it was the previous year. But, fuck Joe Biden, right? 12% increase in cost for 223 cartridges like you would use in your AR, but they're 33 cents a pop, so it's still a cheap date, or cheap-ish. We're still in the 30-cent range here, aren't we? 34 cents for 12-gauge shotgun shells, number 7 bird shot, 1 1/8 ounce, 3 dram equivalent, the whole bit, the standard shell we use as a reference point. I mean, that's your reference point shot where, shot shell there. In fact, that's the SAMI spec. But let's move on. 380 ACP is 34 cents. 40 Smith & Wesson, 35 cents. 36 cents for some oddball cartridge. 45 ACP, 44 cents. Now we're past the 30-cent mark. 5.56 NATO. If you really need it for some reason, you don't. Except for, consistency. 45 cents. 38 Special, 50 cents, along with 308, 50 cents. The 308 is actually cheaper than it was last year, too. The next one, 20 gauge, birdshot, number 7 birdshot, 20 gauge, 60 cents a pop. The hell's with the 28 gauge. 300 blackout, 75% of what it was. It's actually cheaper. 63 cents. 350 Legend is cheaper than last year, 90 cents. And 20 gauge, 13/16 ounce, number 4 buck. 13/16. It's $1 a pop. I'm sure that's got to be a typo. I cut and paste these from the pages. For fuck's sake. But anyway, who would... It doesn't matter. But anyway, here we go. So, there's your pricing. And the ones I didn't mention, the differential in price was either no difference or not enough to make a difference. But yeah, Biden's totally coming for your guns and driving the prices up. Somebody's saying they have intention to do something and then not doing it because they can't, because it's not possible. Your rights aren't being violated that way. That's not how it works. Also, again, he doesn't control the prices of fuel. Otherwise, he would just say, yeah, because of COVID-19 and shit, you're not allowed to raise prices. This has happened before. The U.S. government has dictated that, no, you will leave prices stable and you will just suffer because they were all trusts and they were bitch slapped. Let's talk about the prices for firearms. You can get a 9mm Altor single-shot pistol that's a break and take apart screw action, perfect name for it, pistol, looks like a glue gun, for $100, and it'll fire sort of. You can also get what's called a barrel adaptation, where it puts a really long barrel on it, and you just make a rifle out of the damn thing. It's a goofy firearm, but at that point it becomes somewhat practical. 9mm rifle. Shotguns are still available for $100, $120, $150. There's no run on the bank here going on. And Yeah, there's single shots and they're break actions, but you can put a subcaliber adapter made out of, I don't know, the Altor pistol's barrel, for instance, and stick it in there, and you have a universal starting point to make your gun. I have an old broken AR-15. Take the barrel out, stuff it in the thing, trim it down to where it'll fit, and use that. Now, why would you do that? Instead of building a gun, just buy a gun that's good. You can buy the parts for a AR-15 for $260 to $300 for the upper section of it, not spending thousands of dollars. That's just the parts that are considered, parts that wear out and parts that are used to complete a gun or make it look neater. So when people alter the guns or upgrade the guns, these are the parts that end up in the parts bin that people resell as complete kits for the upper. People get a different bolt carrier group or whatever, and the parts get shifted in and out. That's why they're the Barbie doll gun. The lower receiver is the only part that's serialized and regulated, blah, blah, blah. But you can buy this other kit that converts just the upper into technically a single-shot firearm. You have to pull the bolt back so the cartridge loads. It kicks out the old one, and you let it slam shut, and then you pull the trigger and fire it. It's missing the lower receiver, but when you add those parts, the upper receiver then becomes the receiver of the gun. It's treated as a completely different gun. I'm still looking for the entire list of parts and stuff, but it seems like an interesting project because it makes it really, really small. And it's still magazine fed. Basically, you make this weird thing where you add the magazine to the ejection port on it. And don't ask. And you do a couple of changes and it spits the empties out the bottom. And then you turn it over. Yeah, it's really convoluted, okay? But it allows you to buy all the parts and you're the one who made the gun. Okay. Or you could just buy a gun. And then there's the $800 AR-15. It's a pump action. It's basically like a bolt action AR, but it's a pump. It is utterly hilarious, but and it's funny. I mean, people make fun of it, except they notice it's ridiculously accurate, and because it's so simplified, it doesn't have the ability to jam because it can't. You pull back. The process you would use to remove a jam is the process you use for getting the cartridge out. If it doesn't fire for some reason, you just eject the bad round and move on. Seems like a good one. But anyway, that's a pump action only. Or you can just buy someone's gun they're selling, or you can try to build one. I should point out there are some tubing diameters that do not match with any bullets. 22, 223, and 556 is one of them. There isn't any pipe that fits it. There is not really tubing either at all. Because there isn't. It's not meant to be barrels. Unless you want to put a lot more work into it than you might think. But then again, it's easier than drilling a hole in a hunk of metal that's got no hole in it at all. There's a joke there, but don't do it. Now, I'm going to bring up my favorite example of firearms, shotguns. Now, as I said, you can spend $100, $120, $150, buy one. You can even get pump actions maybe used at cheap, too. You can also buy pump actions that are brand new for, in one case, under $100. Okay, no, it wasn't. It's under $120. No, it's under $200. They changed it those are the prices. Well, it wasn't eBay, it was some website. Went to buy it. But anyway, let's move on. Or you can just buy a real barrel, brand new, $30 for every one of them. That was the fun part. And yeah, there was an AR-15's barrel that was $50. So yeah, you could use that as a subcaliber adapter and just jam it in your 12 gauge. Now let's talk about water pipe guns. Fallout. As you might have looked up on YouTube, lots of people make slam-fire shotguns out of water pipe or whatever. Now, I should point out that if you want to do it right, you want to anneal that pipe to where it's soft. Not kidding. Because you can get away with it. It doesn't require that it be toughened up, and it may keep it from blowing up. So what it'll do is it'll bulge violently, and it's a dead gun, but it won't let anybody get hurt. Something to be said for that. The reason they can get away with that is, number one, shotgun shell cartridges run at like 10,000 to 14,000 psi. Your average 9mm Altor may be taking 30,000 to 50,000 psi in a spike. The smaller the cartridge, generally the higher the psi rating. Not always, but yeah, okay, let's move on. Now with the 12 gauge cartridges, they're 0.8 inches in diameter. and they're straight wall. What they do is they put it in a pipe with a similar diameter. And it's usually a Schedule 40 3/4 inch pipe, which is not ideal. It's actually 0.84, 0.83, not the right diameter. But because it's too big, it doesn't have the ability to develop any pressure even close to 10,000 psi. Now, coincidentally, I did a video about this a while ago, Schedule 80 3/4 inch pipe is rated to 10,000 psi, even higher. And its inner diameter is 0.74 inches. Now, the inner diameter that's supposed to be used for a 12 gauge is 0.73. It's supposed to be 73 caliber smoothbore. This pipe is 74. Okay, that means it'll be close to, but not really the same bore diameter. And you might notice if you look at like a conventional Mossberg shotgun, they're also not the right bore diameter either. It's just supposed to be around that. Okay. But firing it through basically an 80 caliber barrel spreads out the pressure more, so it's a lot safer. But in this case, that's good. Now, the thing is, obviously it's not going to fit the shell anymore, so you have to drill it out, and you keep drilling it with different sizes until you get to 13/16 drill bit diameter. That's how you make the chamber for it. And that's basically what would make it slightly safer. Now, again, you can buy a $30 barrel that's a real one and go ahead and use it. Just saying. Oh, really? It's $30. It's actually maybe cheaper than buying the Schedule 80 pipe. So is there any example where there's an advantage in using a water pipe? Well, in this one, yeah. Because water pipe, again, if you anneal it, and maybe even if you don't, it's a throwaway gun barrel that you can use to test unknown rounds or potentially dangerous rounds or wildcat cartridges or your own hand loads. Instead of blowing up a good gun, you could just set up the metal pipe and make a gun-ish thing, point it down into the ground, maybe have a chronometer to check the feet per second, but it's a safety issue. It's a cheap, simple way of doing it. Buying a $30 barrel that's a real barrel seems like a waste of a barrel. The water pipe here, even if it blows up, especially if you anneal it, will just bulge. And it's thicker. Barrels for shotguns are made with a little bit higher quality control, and they're built to do exactly this one thing. But the water pipe or steel pipe or tubing tends to be thicker and a lot tougher. It's a bull barrel in most cases. Just saying. And again, it's not far off from what it's supposed to be. Now we'll go to the next extreme, the 28 gauge. The bore diameter for the cartridge to fire through, the barrel, is supposed to be 0.545 or 54.5 caliber. So what pipe diameter comes close to it? Well, you're probably thinking, oh, it's not going to be very close. Oh, yeah, it's 54.6 caliber. It's almost identical to a 28 gauge bore. And that would require that you drill chamber it with a 5/8 drill bit. That's half-inch Schedule 80 pipe, which makes me immediately want to get a hold of some of that, just because I'd love to do the barrel, just because I'd want to see, is this really the same thing? I wouldn't even build it. I would just measure it while I'm at Lowe's. I just think it's kind of funny that it's almost like they were thinking of using a half-inch Schedule 80 pipe for a barrel. And yeah, it's still thicker than your average 28 gauge shotgun barrel. It's tougher. It can tolerate more abuse. Again, anneal it usually. Not always. Test the hardness on it. If you can scratch it with a screwdriver, it's soft enough that it'll, instead of blowing up and throwing shrapnel or splintering, it'll just warp. 20 gauge. It wants a 61.5 caliber. The nearest size, sorry, all I can do for you is 62. That's the nearest size for it, and that's a Schedule 40 1/2 inch pipe. Then we get to 410 bore. It's a 41 caliber bore. The closest you can get is a 42 caliber, which is Schedule 80 3/8 inch pipe. Now, why am I mentioning all of this? You notice they're all larger? You can get ones that are smaller than you want, but they're so drastically small that drilling it out and making it work better won't work. And each of them requires still that you chamber it. You have to drill chamber that for 28 gauge is 5/8 drill. 13/16 will do 12 gauge. 410 wants a 15, 30 seconds, and then you have to sand it. All of them require some sanding because the cartridge is tapered. 20 gauge requires you to use a 89 128 inch bit. That seems cockamamie, but it's an exact number of millimeters, right? Nope. Fuck 20 gauge. So anyway, and again, skip all this by just buying a damn barrel for $30 off of eBay. It's $30. That's what they're going for. Or buy the whole gun for 120 and call it all good. And again, the run on the cartridges and the supposed thing caused by the liberals is a lie. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.